Hi there, this is Nick BRPG, where we discuss all things RPG, with JRPGs being my favorite. Thank you so much for tuning in. Obligatory disclaimer, I'm doing a character power tier list for Trails Through Daybreak 2 here. I absolutely love tier lists, they're fun for me, and I hope you have fun tuning in. But if you are spoiler sensitive, right, if seeing what characters you have access to is a spoiler and you haven't played through Daybreak 2 and you don't want to be spoiled in that way, then this video isn't for you, and I recommend you click out now. But if seeing the characters that you can access is not a spoiler to you or you don't care, then sit back and enjoy. Alright, well, I love tier lists, so let's have a little bit of fun here. I did a needlessly deep dive into the character power levels for the Daybreak 2 cast. I even made a spreadsheet, made a quilt out of where all of their attributes ranked against each other. I think it's worth noting that there's a little bit of noise here, right? Little things like bonding and employee of the month, depending on my levels with different characters, might have skewed some out of place, but I think the analysis that I did here should at least be largely accurate to their general power levels when we're discussing stats. I will say that in the main, stats in Trails games really, and certainly in Daybreak 2, are not more indicative of a character's level as their crafts and the special and unique utility that they can bring to the table, but stats certainly mean something, so they will be factoring in this power ranking. The only other thing that I would want to say here is, for the most part, Trails games are fairly decently balanced. You could use any combination of characters in this game and do just fine, especially on normal or lower difficulties. For what it's worth, I played the entire game through hard. Hard is actually the difficulty that I do all Trails games with. That's not the most difficult, but anyway, do with that information what you will. Without further ado, let's jump right in. And coming in at our D tier, or actually, I'm going to name it our Swin tier, at number 17. Okay, so that's the other thing. There's 17 characters in this game. So when I say they rank, whatever, then you'll know what that means in context, what sixth means, right? So there's 17 playable characters, and at dead last in the Swin tier is Swin. Swin is actually maybe the only character in this game who I think is just genuinely bad. He just doesn't have any strengths. All of his stats are mediocre at best, right? He's a striker, like kind of a physical attacker, and he ranks 9th at strength. You would think Swin was fast, but he's actually 6th on speed, right? So this dual wielding fast assassin isn't even like in the upper echelons of speed. He's the second to worst caster in the game, and being an arch user is really strong in basically every Trails game, but it's really strong in this game. So that's the other thing. Arch users already just have a natural edge over physical attackers because arts are completely busted in this game. It's not even remotely balanced. It's kind of balanced in the early game, but it quickly gets out of hand, and arts are just way stronger than attacks. So being one of the worst casters, not even a great attacker, and he has basically no good crafts. He can't impede, he doesn't have great debuffs, he can't cancel enemy buffs, he has zero support. Swin just has basically nothing going for him. So he comes in at 17th in his very own Swin tier. Every other character, in my opinion, is C tier or better. And at 16th place comes in our Dominion, Celise. It's funny, Trails Through Daybreak 2, especially, has an uncanny ability to take these characters who are treated as canonically really strong, right? The Dominion are treated as like demigods, and you're just like so lucky to have access to them for the little moments that you do. And I should say, you don't have a ton of access to Celise and Leon. Not that you'll care, because spoiler alert, Leon isn't good either. I mean, Celise has she has zero utility, okay? Basically, all of her crafts inflict burn, and burn is not a very powerful status condition to inflict. And even then, her stats are middling. Like, okay, Celise is higher in HP. She's higher in strength, right? She's decent in some of those areas, but she's not off the charts. For my money, Celise really just isn't that good. She has decent offensive stats. She's not a good caster. All of her other stats are middling or worse. She's slow, and she has no good crafts to back it up. You have, if you really do want to play a striker, which by the way, I did, you have much better options that will be much higher in this list. So coming in at 15th place is her partner and Dominion, Leon. And there were really only two reasons that I put Leon ahead of Celise, because he has all the same problems she does. Zero support crafts, middling stats, but he's a better caster than she is, and we've already established that if you can only be one or the other, being a caster is better than being a striker. So as a caster, that puts him a little bit ahead. And the other thing is all of his crafts are built around freezing the opponent rather than burning. And freezing is just a much more powerful status condition. So for those reasons, Leon comes up a little bit ahead, but you don't have a ton of access to him just like Celise, and not that you would care because he's one of the worst characters in the game. Coming in at 14th place and still in the C tier, and again, it's these characters who should be so strong, but they aren't, is our man Jin. Jin just can't catch a break. All the way from Sky first chapter, in my opinion, he's just never a great character. He's designed to be a tank. For starters, in this game, he has no taunt. He can't taunt the enemies, so he has all that bulk. But the other thing is I guess I'll just spoil it, your main character, Van Arkwright, Gigachad, has bulk that can match Jin's, and he can actually taunt the enemy. So can you guess how much higher on this list than Jin Van's gonna fall? I mean, here's the thing. Van, and some other characters, in my opinion, outclassed Jin in every single way. He doesn't really even have any great offensive crafts. Like, he has some good, decent damaging crafts, but not a lot of utility behind it. So he's bad. He's the slowest character in the game. He's the worst arts user in the game. And he actually has the lowest arts defense in the game. So even as a tank, he kind of has this blind spot where he's very susceptible to magical attacks. He's bad, and you only have access to him in the end game, I should also mention. So you have very limited, I should say the post game. So he's giving to you like, ooh, now you get to use Jin. It's like, oh, he's one of the worst characters in the game, so thanks. So yeah, Jin sits right there on the tier list. And funny enough, just like our Dominions, his bracer partner, Fee, sits right next to him. And man, have the mighty fallen, because Fee is a favorite of mine, and I think so many through the Cold Steel series. She's one of the best characters throughout that entire series, functioning as this untouchable evade tank who can do all these powerful counters, set up chain attacks, build up your BP gauge, all that stuff. But in this game, she does still have the highest evade stat in the entire game, so she has that going for her. She also has Impede, which is something I like out of my strikers, but her stats suck. She's squishy, her strength's low, even her speed was surprisingly low. She's in 5th place with speed, tied with Van for 5th place. Like, and Fee was like such a canonical speedster, and she can't even wear that hat. So she's got Impede, she still has decent evade, but again, the problem is that Fee doesn't have a taunt. So Van does. She's not as good of a tank as Van, and Van does a lot of other things too. And all of her stats suck. She can impede, so can Van. So just like Jin, Fee gets outclassed by Van, and in my opinion, some others. By Van in every single way, and by others in many ways. So she sits here in the C tier. Our C tier is it's the busiest tier on this list, guys, and I'm sorry to put so many characters low if some of these are your favorite. But coming in next is Aaron Wei. It actually, when I looked at the spreadsheet, it really surprised me how bad Aaron's stats are. Right, you think of Aaron as sort of Daybreak's Agate, right? Just this physical powerhouse, all gas, no brakes, destroy your enemies. But look, guys, Aaron's strength was 8th place. There are 7 characters in my party that have more strength than Aaron, and he's extraordinarily squishy. His speed was nothing to write home about. Aaron was, where was he? He's 7th place. on speed, so he's not even like in the upper echelons of speed. So he's got an okay self buff. He does have an impede, and I do like to have impedes, and his S-craft hits pretty hard, although there are other characters like Shizuna who can do basically all of that and more. So it's hard to put him any higher than this. Strikers are already worse than arch users just right off the rip, and the only thing that Aaron really brings to the table that I appreciate is impede, but there are better options for that. He's extraordinarily squishy and has to sacrifice HP to buff himself. He's just not a great character in my opinion. You have much better options for strikers, and in Daybreak 2, those options are available basically all game long. So Aaron sat at 12th place, sitting at 11th place, and it actually surprised me that I could get her this high on the list, but this is where she lands in my opinion, and that's Fairy. Now Fairy has some of the worst stats in the entire game. She has very low HP, very low defenses, her attack, her strength, and she's a striker, by the way, and she's 14th out of 17 for strength. And her arts is also 14th, her art attack power. So Fairy can't strike or do arts particularly well. So why does she sit this high on the list? There's just one reason. She has a pretty excellent support craft with her Flaming Prayer, right? Buffs your party's attack power and gives them a strength boost. That's a really good craft. Support crafts really are difference makers, in my opinion, in Trails, in terms of boosting a character's power level, because shoring up bad stats can be pretty easily done through good gear optimization and droplets. I mean, base stats do mean something, don't get me wrong, it's why I'm talking about them. And yeah, Fairy stats are terrible, but that one support craft, where none of the other characters before her on this list have any support crafts, it puts her ahead for just that alone. So yeah, Fairy sits at 11th place, and Fairy closes out our C tier. So at 10th place, and coming in at the bottom of B tier, and guys, I'm actually really surprised I had to put her this low, but I'll explain myself when I talk it up. That's Nadia. Now look, Nadia's pretty good, right? Because all arch users in this game are good. But what surprised me is that Nadia's arch strength was actually 5th place. So there are 4 better arch users in this game than Nadia, and one of them was a real surprise. We'll talk about them later. So she's 5th place at arts, and then the rest of her stats are just absolutely abysmal. Nadia is 15th place for speed. Speed is a very important stat. She's squishy, basically across the board, and she has one, I would say, okay support craft. Right, it can heal everybody but her and give them a CP boost. And charges their EP. It's a good craft. I love support crafts, and any character that has access to them boosts them up. And she also has impede on top of that. So she has a decent craft line for a mage, but this game has some really good mages with, in my opinion, even better craft lines. And so I couldn't put Nadia any higher. If there wasn't such stiff competition for mages, she probably would go higher, but as I talk about the higher tier characters, you'll see why Nadia ended up sitting so low on this list. Coming in 9th, and again, this was a surprise that I had to put them this low, but coming in at 9th is Katra. Now for starters, Katra, he has the worst stats in the entire game. I mean, just look at my spreadsheet here. Red means that they sit at the last place. He has the worst HP, strength, defense, agility, and dexterity, and his speed is 16th place, so he's second to last. So he has absolutely abysmal stats. Even as a caster, which is what he is, he's only 4th. So there are 3 characters who have better casting power than Katra. So we're off to a really bad start here. But I said I was surprised that I had to put him this low, and I say that because Katra does have some pretty excellent support crafts. He has a shield. Shields are really good. That shield also boosts his allies' attack power and arts power. That's excellent. The drawback to that shield is it has a relatively small area, so depending on your positioning, it can be hard to get your whole party with it, and that is a really big drawback to that shield. He has a cure, that on a craft that can also boost CP. That's good, but there are some more impressive healing crafts that we'll talk about, in my opinion, much higher on this list. His S craft is awful, and that's bad, right? Because just having that option to do an S break is useful, and he has probably the worst S craft in the entire game. It's just a really weak and a relatively narrow area compared to others that it can target. So he has a lot of weaknesses, but he is an arts user. Arts users are excellent, and he does have some pretty excellent support crafts. So those low lows and high highs basically pull him to the middle of the pack. Coming in at 8th place and closing out our B tier is Elaine. I kind of wish I could put Elaine higher because she really is an excellent character. Elaine has pretty outstanding stats. She's tanky, she's 6th place with attack, she surprised me by being 3rd place with speed. So Elaine is really fast. She has low cooldown crafts, so they don't set her delay too far, and she can delay enemies. So Elaine is sort of like a discount Richard from Trails the Third, where she can execute her attacks pretty quickly. She is a very competent striker, and on top of that, she does have one support craft that, in my opinion, is excellent. Sword of Ortis, I think it's called. Hits your enemies with high power in a pretty generous area. It hits, so basically hits every enemy more often than not, and heals your entire party and boosts their CP. That's an outstanding support craft. It's a bit expensive, but it's still great to have. Elaine's not a great caster, so she doesn't really have the ability to fall back on arts. She's not a terrible caster. She's 10th place, but she's not great. So she's a decent striker. She's a weak caster. She's reasonably tanky. She's very fast. And she has one pretty good support craft. She's kind of like a jack of all trades, but she doesn't really excel at anything. And I think that's why Elaine sits as a high B tier pick for me. She is an excellent character, but there just are other characters that do more better. Coming in at 7th place, and I almost can't believe that I have to put her this low, but I think I do, and that's Reset. And you know, I gotta tell you guys, I used Reset in both Daybreak 1 and 2 in my main party basically the entire time. Because in my opinion, Reset has the best shield craft in the entire game. And that's actually the only thing pulling her up this high. Reset's stats in the main are actually pretty bad. She's reasonably tanky, and that's it. But she makes for a good support character. I make sure she has good healing arts tooled on. And she has the widest area shield that also buffs your character's defense and arts defense. And it's cheap. It's not very expensive. So Reset can basically keep your team shielded for the entire fight with fairly minimal effort. Just what a safety net Reset is. And that's why I always use her. Even though I think overall the rest of the characters that I'm going to be talking about are better than her, she is the best shielder in the entire game. And that alone makes her a really strong pick. Coming in at 6th place, and this is going to surprise, I think, a lot of people, is one of my favorite characters, just lore-wise, because she's so funny and I love her to pieces, is Judith Lanster. And I imagine many other people probably think she's way worse than I do. But, I mean, let me explain myself. I mean, look at the spreadsheet for starters. Judith just has outstanding stats. She really surprised me with how good her stats are. She's 4th place on HP. She's 4th place on strength. She's 7th place on defense. She was 3rd place with arts attack power. She's the 3rd best caster in the game. So, and she's fast too. Judith was 4th place with speed. So Judith has excellent stats all the way across the board. And she's a very good arts user. And arts are amazing to use. And she can also use her art strength to bolster her basic attacks with her very excellent transformation ability. Judith's transformation makes her the best basic attacker in the entire game. So she's an excellent caster, she's an excellent striker, and she has decent crafts on top of that. Charm, in my opinion, seemed to just be one of the most effective status conditions, especially on boss fights where there are packs of enemies. It's one of the best debuffs in the game. And hers is cheap, right? It basically takes their turn and makes them attack each other. So her charm is pretty good. She has an impede. It's only single target, but usually that's all you need when you're looking to impede. So she can impede, which is something that you really want to have on your strikers. She has the ability to steal enemies' HP, so she can self-sustain. And she has, in my opinion, one of the best offensive S-crafts in the entire game. It hits the entire screen, it's pretty strong, it has a very high blind chance, and on top of all of that, it's a buff canceller. And buff cancellation is extremely valuable. Now, hers is on the S-craft, where the other two characters who I've yet to talk about is on regular crafts. So you could say it's less available, but because it's on an S-craft, it's also available right when you need it. Right? The enemy buffs, you break with Judith and you immediately strip it back away from them. So Judith is a surprisingly very tactical character. She does it all. She can strike, she can cast, she can impede, and she can, strip enemy buffs. She's an excellent character. I use her a lot, and I think she's probably the character that the Daybreak community is sleeping on the most. She's really powerful. And to close out the A tier, and I really thought about whether or not I should put this character higher. The next two picks I'm not certain about, but we'll put them as we may. And I put Ren Bright, fan favorite that she is, at the top of A tier. Now Ren has a lot going for her. She has pretty good stats. She's even surprisingly strong. She's 7th place, and she was 2nd place for her arts power. So Ren is an outstanding caster. She's respectably fast for a caster. She was 7th place with speed. And to top all of that, she has one of the best support crafts in the entire game. It heals the party except for her, and it gives them a stat boost. Again, except for her, that's a bummer, but buffing everybody's stats and healing them on an S-craft, that's pretty good utility. She just is, in my opinion, roundly outclassed by Agnes, and that's why I had a hard time putting her any higher than this. But I think if you said that Ren was an S-tier character, I wouldn't fight you on it. Excellent mage with an excellent support craft, the case makes itself. And she has decent stats basically across the board on top of that. So the other pick that I was less certain of, and coming into the bottom of our S tier, is Shizuna. Now, the reason why I'm not sure if Shizuna belongs here is because Daybreak basically hates strikers by comparison to casters, and Shizuna is the best striker in the game. But, let me make my case. Shizuna has the best stats in the entire game, and I don't even think it's close. She came in at number 2 for hit points, number 1 for strength, number 4 for defense, number 6 for her arts power. Shizuna can double as a mage. I didn't even realize that until I was looking at their stats. She was the fastest character in the entire party, too. So you have the fastest character, the strongest character, one of the tankiest characters, and she could actually double as a decent mage if you wanted her to do that. We're off to a really good start, but there's more to Shizuna than that. Shizuna has the cheapest and most spammable buff canceling craft in the entire game. The craft cannot miss, none of her crafts can miss, and that is valuable, by the way. That basically makes her blind proof, and just when you know you need it, you're gonna get it from her. So she can strip buffs. That craft is also a delay craft. Her S-craft is the hardest hitting craft in the whole game, and it has delay on top of that, so she's a great S-breaker. Shizuna just is a top-rate striker. She's absurdly strong, she's absurdly fast, she has good crafts that can delay and strip buffs, none of which can miss, and she's a decent caster on top of that. I think my case for making Shizuna a low S tier is reasonable enough. Coming in at 3rd place and next on the S tier is our pal Kincaid. This is the best character who I basically never used. His availability is spotty in my defense, but guys, I gotta tell you, Kincaid is unreal good. You wouldn't tell by looking at his stats. His stats are awful. Let's just not mince words. His stats are bad all the way across the board. But he gets this high because every single one of his crafts is an absolute banger. This guy's got an impede. Impede, in my opinion, is extremely valuable. So he could do that. Right, they're charging up a big spell or attack. Kincaid can cancel it. He has also a pretty spammable boss buff removal mechanic. Not quite as spammable as Shizuna, and not an S-break like Judith, which is a type of advantage, but he still got it. and it's very useful. And his best craft, in my opinion, is a strength buff that also immediately makes the person who he buffed play next. Think about how good that is whenever the Grendel's available, right? Kincaid is like a built boss destroyer. They want to charge a move, he can impede it. They want to buff all their stats, he can strip it. And in between all of that, he's taking whoever your carry is that fight, either your best caster or Van if he's in the Grendel form, and he's just being a turn battery and feeding them more turns and pulverizing the boss in the process. He's just an outstanding support. His crafts are so good. I couldn't put him any lower on the list. Coming in at second place is our protag and one of my favorite characters in the entire Trail series, Van Arkwright. And oh man, does Van just have so many things going for him. I mean, I've talked about strikers, right? And Van is an excellent striker. His strength was third in the entire cast, right? His defense is actually ranked first, his HP and defense. His arts defense is decent, he's fast. So he has good stats, but that's not why Van sits this high. He sits this high because he has an insane suite of crafts. Van can impede, and he probably has the best impede in the whole cast because it's a big area on a reasonably cheap and hard-hitting craft. He has probably the best self-buff in the game because it buffs his strength, it puts HP regen on him, which is good because he's our tank. We'll talk about that in a second. And most importantly, that buff does not consume his turn. So Van can always keep his buff running at no action economy cost, and that's very important. He has other just hard-hitting crafts. He has the hardest-hitting single target craft in the game. He is the only single target craft in the game, but it just wallops bosses. But on top of all of that, he has coin bullets. And coin bullets is the craft that really makes Van Van. It taunts every enemy, and it lowers their offensive abilities at the same time, their strength and their arts power. So it neuters them, makes them attack Van, which by the way keeps his CP very high so that on his turns he can clap back. All of this is before we even talked about the Grendel, right, which is just this super form that he can access in, I don't know, maybe 30% of the boss fights. When Van has access to the Grendel, he's more powerful than the rest of your party combined. He's just a literal monster. He's outstanding. No matter which way you slice it. He's your only tank. I would say he's your best tank, but he's your only tank. But he is very good at it. He's extraordinarily sturdy. And he's a great striker with all sorts of utility on top of that. So how does number one take all of that? Well, let's talk about first place, Agnes. Now, you gotta love it. You gotta love Trails, right? We have Zin the Immovable, this future S-rank bracer, famous throughout the whole world. We have Dominions with these legendary, like, supernatural stigmas who are considered beyond human. We've got child soldiers who were trained from the past, Blade Dancer, high-rank bracer, right? A-rank bracer, Ren Bright, who is an ex-enforcer. She's in a divine blade, and they all get topped by our combat inexperienced schoolgirl. Well, I mean, why is Agnes the best character in the entire game? Well, for starters, she has the highest art strength. We're off to a really good start. Spells in this game are absurdly good. You know how I talk about buff removal? Well, there's a spell in this game that hits every enemy. It targets two different elements, water and mirage, which, from what I could tell, almost every enemy was weak to at least one or the other. So she just brings all of this utility with even just one single art. Devastating damage, right? And then you have the support ability, Arc Feather, so you get to basically hit again on top of that. Arch users are spoiled, but that isn't what brings Agnes all the way up here. It's that in addition to being the best caster in the game, she has the best support crafts in the entire game. She has the only support S-craft, and my god, what a good S-craft it is. Basically, if most of your party gets wiped up or really beaten down, but Agnes is still standing, she S-breaks, picks everybody back up, resets the entire fight. What an outstanding S-craft. On top of that, Agnes also has a shield alongside Reset and Katra. I would say her shield is probably the worst of the lot, but it's not bad, and she has it. So she has a heal that can restore EP, and she has a heal that can restore all status ailments. So she just has this full line of support crafts. She even has decent offensive crafts. And also, even though Agnes is one of the worst attackers in the game, Trails has this weird thing where stabs basically don't care how weak you are and basically always do respectable damage. So Agnes is even a decent attacker or chain attacker if you're using her with your Link. She does it all. She's even respectably fast for a mage, ranking at 7th place. She's an outstanding character. Best support and caster in the game. How do you argue with that? So anyway, guys, this was my needlessly thorough analysis of the 12th game in the Trail series that probably nobody would care about and tune into, but I love tier lists. I just played through the game. I thought I would talk about the character's power level and make my own. I hope you had fun with this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you had fun with this video, consider giving me a like and a sub. I plan on making all sorts of RPG content, especially JRPG content, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.